the summary of who you are and how you came to be on this planet Earth that we are on.
Sure. So I was born in Mozambique, in the north of the country, in a small town called Nampula. My parents are both from there, but they're quite mixed in terms of their background. I lived there till I finished my high school. Then I went to a university degree in the center of the country. I stayed there for 5 years, and then I traveled to Maputo, and I've been living there for the last 4 years while still traveling the continent and other continents as well.
Okay. And how did you end up in South Africa?
So I came here to serve as a client. I'm an entrepreneur. I have a knowledge consultancy company, and I'm a power coach, facilitator, and speaker. And I came here to do an amazing work with a client on design thinking and design service.
In some ways, almost half, maybe more than half the continent is an entrepreneur in a very simple sense, in the sense that you'll see constantly women and men, selling mangoes on the street, and they're taking things, they're selling whatever on the street. I mean, literally in the highway when there's a go slow, like no moving traffic, people will be selling stuff. So almost everybody is an entrepreneur on the one hand. On the other hand, being a quote unquote classic entrepreneur, like we think of entrepreneurs in the high income countries, somebody
Yeah.
like you who actually has a business and has employees and that kind of stuff, that is actually much harder to do in Africa. It seems, from my
Yeah.
perspective, than it is in the United States. Is that a fair assessment?
Actually, it is. So the majority of economy in Africa is informal in almost every
Right.
country. And really, it's what drives the entire continent's economy and really makes sure that people have food in their tables in the end of the day. And then most of the constraints around having a formalized businesses comes down to the formalization cost being super high on one hand. And on the other hand, the entire process on how to formalize a business not being quite clear for everyone involved in the chain. And the last one goes really down on around having the sort of socials and soft skills around creating a real business that's sort of like it's way beyond being a freelancer or a solopreneur. It's around, having employees and having processes in places.
Right. And so I think you hit the nail on the head. You called it
Preneur.
solopreneur.
Yeah,
Yeah. And that's what so many Africans are. Right.
exactly.
And I think you hit it on the head as well. It's that formalization process. It's the incorporation. It's getting all the legal requirements out of the way. It's dealing with the corruption and having to navigate that as well. I imagine that's was really hard. Tell us a little bit about your journey, how you started your company.
Yeah, in my case, my first business I co-founded with a friend who worked in this. He was already an entrepreneur, so he knew the process, so it made it super easy. And then I joined a ecosystem builder company in Mozambique, where it's all about supporting organizations to be more active within the entrepreneurial ecosystem. So I got a pretty nice understanding around what does it take to formalize a business in Mozambique. And with that, sort of like my network had expanded, and I knew sort of like influential people in the area, so they make super easy for me. But then when we look around, the cost of formalize a business in Mozambique, we're in around $1,000 for the most basic registration process you can have. And the process might take up to from 1 month all the way to 3 months to formalize. And I'm not talking about big corporations or anything. If you see an entrepreneur that's really just trying to make ends meet, there is no really point about being a formal business, right? But then if you're growing more into the sort of entrepreneurship value chain, you want to get legal compliance, like fully legal compliance, if you want to be able to do business with governments or other big organizations. But that's not what most people are looking for.
Right. And $1,000 may not sound like a lot of money for some people in the United States, but that is a lot of money in Mozambique.
It is. I mean, the basic salary, the minimum wage, it's around $100 or so
You're talking about per month.
per month in Mozambique.
Right.
It's
Right. 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 So when
$120, if
people,
I'm not mistaken. So for you
right.
to
Right.
accumulate $1,000 to formalize a business that you don't even know if it's going to give you the return on the investment, it's a huge risk that people don't often feel compelled to take.
Right. And of course, that $1,000, that's just administrative costs. In other words, it's not like you're investing in telephone equipment or
No,
inventory or all the stuff that really actually raises value, because when you spend $1,000 paying a government fee, that that doesn't bring in any customers. It doesn't do
absolutely.
anything.
And I
Right.
think most of the governments in Africa, they're sort of aware of it and they're creating more of simplified registration processes quite way more cheaper, and really to make sure that the people that you mentioned, they're selling on the streets, they actually have some sort of legal framework to operate and not be as informal. Because the main risk of being informal is that, you're not paying social security, you're not really catering for your future. And that's something that most governments are aware of, and really trying to find like a middle ground between those spaces, but it's not always easy.